Right. Well,
I made a mistake. Sorry.
Yeah, I do now make it 7:30.
Yep.
Well, we don't have to quorate particularly for. Here's John anyway. Well, we are quorate anyway for the parish council meeting.
Yes, I'm out.
Right. Okay, Ian. So I would ask councillors to mute, or in your case, Ian, not to speak, and until we come to you.
Yeah, 5.1.
Right. So I'd like to welcome members of the public to this. If you're watching on Facebook or YouTube, and indeed we have 3 members of the public joining us on the Zoom call at the moment for the open forum. So first of all, can I invite any questions from members of the public? Oh, John, did you want to say something?
Just before that, Chair, if I could just, on behalf of Councillor David Hines, send his apologies. He was putting up the junction box lights this afternoon and was not in a good position, chronic headache. So I said, well, if you don't make it, I'll give apologies. So he will try to make it, but he may not.
Okay.
And he is putting the lights up. The junction boxes are there.
Yes, I mean, just for lack of amusement, despite the request for those junction boxes to go up about 2 weeks ago, they weren't up when we were putting the lights up on Saturday, despite him chasing during the day. They were meant to have been done on Friday, and then they were put up today, but they were left locked without any keys.
That is correct, Chair. And David has now got the key, and the lights along the church are on, but sadly to report, the triangle, where I was with him there, the fuse in his extension cable blew. Okay. So I left him to it. Anyway, there we are.
Well, it was a good turnout from villagers to help on Saturday, which I think we were all very appreciative of, actually, especially those of us that are getting a little bit older.
Yes, indeed.
There we go. Right, members of the public, would anyone like to speak? I can see Steve Patrick, Andrew Wright, M. Jeffries and Karen. I don't know if that's Karen Russo or Karen, but anyway, would any of you like to ask a question or speak in the open forum?
Thank you, Chair. It's Andrew Wright speaking. I'm just here to observe in my capacity as advisor to the Markham family.
Okay, all right, that's absolutely fine. Now, Andrew, just to be clear, what we do ask is that we can speak during the open forum. I often do extend the courtesy to applicants or objectors during the items to suspend the meeting, usually by arrangement in advance if there's something that wants to be said. And I am aware that Steve Patrick has asked to speak in the main agenda on 12 Shepperton Close. Did you want to speak at all, Andrew? Because otherwise we will ask all residents to leave the Zoom call at the end of the open forum and to continue watching and observing via either YouTube. You can do that on my channel, Philip Ailes, or on the village Facebook page, Castlethorpe Village Facebook page. So did you want to speak at all, Andrew, at all?
No, I don't think that'll be necessary. Thank you, Chair. So I'm happy to leave at the appointed time and observe on YouTube or Facebook.
Lovely. Okay. Can I ask, welcome, George. Can I ask if anybody else wishes to speak of members of the public?
Oh, this is golden.
Yeah. Okay. Well, if there are no other questions, I would say that Tony Bracey rang me this afternoon, this topic that's come up in these open forums quite a few times, to say that Cosgrove Parish Council have now reported the potholes. They've been out and measured all the potholes on the road out past the navigation, and they have reported it through Fix My Road, which is the general one, to South North Hants and North Hants. Well, we'll see whether that gets fixed, but they have taken that action. Right. In that case, if there are no questions from members of the public, we will move to the main meeting itself. And I will ask members of the public now to remove themselves from the Zoom call. It makes it a little bit less crowded on the screen that we're watching here, and we'll move into the meeting itself. Okay, and someone is calling, but I think that is too late. Right, while you do that, we'll start the meeting. And so, first of all, apologies for absence. We've had apologies from Councillor Hines by way of illness, and Councillor Sawbridge by way of business work. Is that all of us?
Yes, I'm out. Yep.
No, it's Ian.
Yep.
1, 2, 3. Yes, that's all of us, isn't it? Declarations of interest.
5.1 million.
Yeah. And on that item, Ian, I'll just ask you to, rather than trying to leave the meeting and rejoin, which is very messy, if you could just not speak during that item at all, please, and we'll mark you as not in attendance.
Not a problem.
Any other declarations of interest? In that case, can we move to approving the minutes of the last meeting, 2nd of November? Are there any matters of fact and accuracy within these minutes that anyone would like to have corrected? If not, could I ask for a proposer to accept the minutes? That's Russell, and a seconder is John, and all in favour? So that's
Well,
unanimous.
I wasn't there.
Right. So we now move to the clerk's report. And what I will try and do for members of the public is I'll share this screen. Is that going to be helpful? Well, not to you, Ian, I'm afraid.
Ian's got a copy.
Yeah. So let's walk through that. Are there any questions on the first 6 items, which are before we get to the sports ground?
Number 5, Chair. Brian Shaler is saying that he's going to start work on the defibrillators tomorrow at the village hall and at the sports ground. I know that you and Russell at least are aware.
Yeah, thank you.
That includes 6 as well, doesn't it, Steve?
It includes 6 as well.
Yeah. If I could just mention, I have put it in the councillors' papers, but there is a letter that we received, or an email that we received from Milton Keynes Council today about the allocation of Gobbis Field as a local green space. It's very, very difficult to understand what they're saying in that letter. And I think before we can proceed on it, we will need to have a call. I have actually written, I'll come to you in a moment, Russell. I have actually written to or copied Neil Homer, our consultant, on it. And actually he has said he doesn't understand what it means either. It appears to say that either that they haven't completed the examination fully, or that they just need us to reconfirm that we are asking MKC to designate it as a local green space. But it's very difficult to know. And unfortunately, although David Blandammer, our contact at Milton Keynes Council, sent the email at 10:30 this morning, when I replied to it as just a holding reply, I got an out of office on leave until next Monday. And when I tried phoning his number, I got his voicemail. So not very satisfactory. Russell.
I read it as being which way do we want to go, for them to adopt it or for us to go to a referendum?
Yes, but we have
Exactly,
actually.
that's how I read it, and we decided
and we
that.
have already told them that. So I just think that this is just, they just want confirmation of it.
Well, if it is just that, that's very straightforward.
Yeah.
As Steve has
Because-
said, we actually resolved this in September and wrote to them shortly afterwards. In fact, I think I wrote to him that very night after the council meeting. So anyway, that's where we are on that. And I hope that everyone is happy for the steering group to continue to progress this, because you know, it's obviously very difficult if we're only going to do it at the monthly chunks of our parish council meetings.
The message from the examiner inspector was basically just amplifying what he said in his report.
Indeed it was, yes.
Yeah.
I really found it very difficult to understand why he was writing it. We'll pick it up. It will have to be next week now, but because David Blandam is not back from leave until then.
So did you say that was in the documents you sent?
If you look at the folder that is there, you will see under item, they're all labeled by the agenda item, and you'll see a PDF under with a number 4.1, which is this agenda item. In fact, you can see it on the sharing screen now, I think.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Yes.
And it's that one there. I can open it if you want. But
No, I've got it now, thanks.
yeah. All right.
That-
So just the one page.
That's from the independent examiner. That's not from the council.
No, but the council forwarded it to us and asked us what we wanted to do.
Right. So the note from the council isn't in here.
It was an email.
Yeah, it was
I
an
mean, the
email.
note from the council is basically, please see, George.
Yeah.
Mm.
Right. Okay. Thanks.
Okay. Russell, did you want to say anything about item 7, which is quite a big one?
Not really. I mean, basically, because of the grant they got for the sports ground, and the fact that basically they haven't been spending any money and things, they are quite well off, and they don't require the operating fee that we pay them this year, and probably not for next year as well.
I mean, we have a review every year, so we'll revisit before the budget next year.
Okay. Item 8 is an important one that the S106 monies that have been outstanding since August. They've said, they needed us to confirm that we would accept it, so, which we did by return. Anyway, that's done.
Hot off the press, Chair. Paul Van Geet has said that the money should be paid into our account this week.
Very good.
As you know, I just received paper statements and they won't tell me. So if a councillor could check maybe next Monday.
Yeah. I think it's worth just explaining what item 9 is for members of the public.
Before we do that, Phil, just on item 8, I know you've been trying to get the Allotments Association to recoup the money that's the £1,473 that they have still got. How have you got on with that?
I've minded them about 5 or 6 times now.
Right. So maybe some of the villagers watching, if they're members of the Allotments Association, should get the committee to look into this, because it's got a lot of money for them.
Well, it's money
15...
to be spent. It's not money to go into the coffers. It's money to be spent on not necessarily capital, but on a project of some type.
Yeah.
But it is £1,500, and it will actually expire and be given back to the developer.
Yeah.
I think in about 18 months' time or so, maybe
2024.
2024, as long as that. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Item 9, I was just going to explain to residents, is that Milton Keynes are upgrading all the street lights to LED, and Castlethorpe is scheduled for the next financial year starting in April. And we wanted to take advantage of that upgrade to see if we could get some rather nicer street lights put in in all of the places, and we've asked them for various quotes to do so, and we've been chasing them regularly since March when we had the meeting with them, physical meeting, and I was promised pretty much faithfully I'd have the quote for this evening's meeting, which of course I haven't had, but there you go. Anything else? I don't think there's anything else that we're not going to cover on the agenda. Right, shall I go back now to the main screen, and we'll now move on to planning applications. 5.1 is the new dwelling, including access and amenity space and new access, 1 Wolverton Road. Now, again here, I did actually circulate some thoughts that I had, which of course are only my personal thoughts, and members of the council might choose, you know, to go in a different way. But is it useful for me just to sort of talk through this, and then we'll and then I can open it up for councillors to discuss. So let me share this screen again. So basically, I'm suggesting that we really have no objection in principle to a new dwelling being put on that site, nor actually to the proposed design, which, although it's got dormer windows, is pretty much, you know, the same sort of height and so on as the existing Joyce Markham's bungalow. However, I have two comments that I am very worried about. Well, not well. One which I think is aesthetic, and one that I'm very worried about. The aesthetic one is that the access for the new dwelling is onto Bullington End Road, and I would suggest that it would look a lot more natural if the orientation of the dwelling was rotated 90 degrees, so it faces the road from which it's accessed. So you'll when you come up the drive from it, it will face it and be in line with the other dwellings on Bullington End Road, which all face onto Bullington End Road, rather than being an edge-on design. And I hope that wouldn't cause you know, any great problems. However, the thing that I really do feel very strongly about, and speaking as one of the councillors who operates the speed indicator device, I object really very strongly to the new access proposed for the existing dwelling onto Wolverton Road. It is very close to traffic calming. I know it says it's 16 metres, but that build out forces all traffic onto the side of the road by the proposed access. Now, just to try and put this into some perspective, you know, we've been worried about the excess speeds at this entrance for a long time, and I've had, I say, a road safety officer. I've had at least 2 road safety officers and at least 3 heads of highways out to look at this, and they will not agree to any further traffic calming at that entrance, such as humps, because traffic's on the wrong side of the road, and you could find a vehicle being basically launched off the humps if it came in too fast. So I really do feel very strongly that that we shouldn't have this there for road safety reasons. I've also shown on this slide, on this bit of paper, you know, some results from the speed indicator. It is within the 30-mile-an-hour area, but frankly, only about half the incoming traffic stays within that 30-mile-an-hour limit. And we've recorded maximum speeds up to 65 miles an hour at that point. And by the way, the point where we measure is just by the corner of Fox Covert Lane, so it's a little bit further in. So if anything, they're likely to have been going at a slightly higher speed when they come past the proposed access. But more critically than the maximum speed, it's something called the 85th percentile, which is what the police and MK Highways Authority use for measuring the criticality of speed on entrances. And it's usually between 35 and 44 miles an hour. It's reasonably variable. But if I tell you at 35 miles an hour, that's the speed when police do enforcement. So many of you know that week yesterday, the police were out on Hanslope Road, and they were because the V85 was at this, in fact, it was lower than this. It was about the 35, 37 level. And frankly, I've been on community speed watch with the police at this site and observed a number of very dangerous confrontations there. So I think where it's being proposed is very dangerous, and I would suggest that the parish council ask the applicant either to retain the existing access or a new shared access onto Bullington Den Road. I do understand that this stops a clean break between the two properties, and it means that there's got to be a right of access from Joyce's existing bungalow, but I do think it would be a lot safer. And I put on the bottom there the formal wording that we need to put in, that I would be prepared to go and speak to Development Control Panel if the case officer doesn't accept our objection. So could I now, I'll stop the screen share and move back to the council. Can I ask councillors if you have any comments on this? John.
Simply, Chair, to support the views you've laid before. I also, as you know, do speed checks there, and I would endorse that. And I think what you've proposed is eminently sensible.
Russell.
I was going to say exactly what John said, actually. I agree with you.
Darren?
Me too. Yeah, I just, as I say, in principle, the house and everything, I just, living on the road myself, I'm acutely aware of, the speed that people come down here and stuff, as well as how quickly people access the village to turn in and stuff as well. So, yes, definitely the one factor I think would need to be looked at.
Okay, in that case, can I just ask formally for a show of hands that we submit it as written? Okay, unanimous. Thank you very much. So moving on now to 5.2, which is notification to fell to apple trees and prune and pollard eucalyptus. Does anyone have any comments on this? No. Okay, no objection. Item 5.3. Now, I know that Steve Patrick wanted to join us at this point, and I'm just going to talk slowly so that he can rejoin the meeting, because, and what I would say while he's doing that is that, first of all, Steve has produced a number of drawings and objections, which I think he circulated to all councillors beforehand, which you should have had beforehand. And I would also say that I've had emails and phone calls from a number of residents in Shepperton Close, also expressing their objection to this. And part of the objection and a further document that was sent in appears to show a high likelihood that this will actually be operated as a commercial gym rather than being for domestic use only. As a result, and again, I'm continuing to talk slowly while hopefully Steve joins us, there is a little bit of a lag on the live streams on Facebook, and here is Steve coming up now. So Steve, as soon as you're ready, I will suspend the meeting so that you can speak, and then we'll resume the meeting to have the council discussion. Steve.
Hi, Chair. Hi, Phil. Sorry, am I coming through okay?
Yes, you're fine.
Yeah. Sorry, it took me a little while to get back in there. It's the first time I've used Zoom. I've done a lot of Teams. I'll be as brief as I can. I'll just stop my video so it'll reduce the bandwidth. This is the second time this rooftop application has come before the Parish Council. It came in January 2018. This is a much greater, bigger application. It's a very top-heavy, extensive project, it'll have a massive impact on Shepperton Close. It'll have a massive impact on the neighbours, the immediate neighbours, a massive impact on Shepperton Close, but also Castlethorpe. It contravenes the CNP in many ways. I know the Parish Council and the village have worked very hard to implement the CNP. It's cost quite a bit to the village, and I know it's the envy of some of the other parishes. This application contravenes the CNP in many ways. Changing a 2-storey into a 3rd storey contravenes the CNP. It's completely out of character. Shepperton Close is character area 2 in the CNP, which is to protect the consistency of style. These bifold doors on the 3rd floor and the flat roof extension all contravene the CNP. Non-Georgian windows are out of style and character. It actually will destroy the consistency of style. It will become a one-off house on the estate, unique to itself. It'll open the floodgates for other rooftop developments. It's a great loss of amenity to the neighbours. The staggered houses here means it absolutely dominates the garden of number 10. It's a loss of view, it's a loss of privacy, it's a loss of daylight to the neighbouring properties through the 2 side windows. It's a loss of visual vista as well. The plans submitted actually increase the height of the roof, and this is because if you look at it, it's very top heavy, but the building regulations specify a exit height at the top of the stairs. So to actually make the stairs comply legally, they will have to increase the height of the roof. It's removing suspended ceilings, taking all the purlins out of the building and the super trusses. So it's a major project. The whole roof will have to come off, and a steel frame, new floor, new roof, new insulation. It breaks the restrictive covenant in the deeds, changing the roof line and the windows. We have a history here on Shepperton Close of subsidence. We are built on gravel pits. Foundations here are not built for 3-storey buildings. My single brick garage at number 10 is 65 centimetres away at the eaves and is a subsidence risk because it's only single brick and very small foundations. This development is visible from 3 footpaths, the Tove Valley and the canal and the public road. Turning to the other part of the application, which is the gym business, it will bring noise, music, banging of weights, running machines, etc. Much more footfall. It will bring a parking and vehicle access problem. A gym should not be on a private residential street. Number 12 has a single brick dividing wall between the 2 garages, and the garages are actually built at a different height. The very large flat roof on the rear of the garage, which is proposed, because it's an extension on the roof, it's an extension at the rear of the house, but it's also a square flat roof extension a third of the way up the back garage, will also have a big impact on number 12. Removing the garage door and replacing it with a second entrance and window on the front of the street will also contravene the Castlethorpe neighbourhood plan. Transacting business on the residential street, I believe it should really be a commercial planning application and a change of use rather than just a normal planning application. I urge you to object to the application as was done in 2018. Happy to take any questions.
Okay. Does anyone have any questions for Steve? Otherwise, I'll move in. We'll resume the meeting, and I will put up a proposed response, which we can then comment on as we did with the previous one.
just quickly. Steve, I just assume that you say it goes evens, does it, in Shepperton? This is your next door neighbour?
We're on the even side of the street, yes. So it goes, I'm number 10, so this is number 12. So it's 8, 10, 12, 14 in a staggered manner. It's part of the stagger that really makes it so visible from my garden. You might have seen the image I produced.
No, definitely. It's very well done. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. If you would like to mute yourself now, Steve. Sorry, did you want to ask Steve a question, Russell?
No, Kay Sawbridge is trying to get on but can't.
Does she know why she can't?
No. She says the joining link is not working and no one will let me in. I've posted another way of getting in, so hopefully she'll get on shortly.
Okay. Right. Let me now move to a share of a proposed response. So, first of all, I have just making a comment that having read Steve Patrick's detailed objection, including the projected views, I would like to suggest that the Parish Council does endorse that. It's a very well written document. In terms of our response, you can see here I've said that it contravenes Policy 3 design guidance. I know we're modifying the neighbourhood plan, but the previous neighbourhood plan, the 2017 one, is still in force and will remain in force until we eventually get the modified plan made. As Steve has said, this is a highly stylised neo-Georgian estate and forms one of the areas explicitly protected in this design guidance. Now, I've highlighted just below the relevant policy out of the CNP, which you can read, but you can see it's about 2 stories, roof pitch, and window openings, and says that it should be constructed from materials and design matching the existing building. And just below, it specifically mentions that the area includes Shepperton Close. So that's the planning policy background to what I would recommend as our objection here. That the application will substantially damage the front view of the property, both with an outer character door in the converted garage. I don't know if you've noticed from the drawings, but there is well, basically just a normal door, whereas, as you know, in Shepperton, they should have these pedimented front doors in the Georgian style, neo-Georgian style. This is just a door, basically. And the flat roof rear extension will be very visible from the public highway. And this was actually the reason that I could remind councillors that we objected to the previous application here on this premises. It creates a 3rd story as explicitly prohibited and raises the roof line, which means it wouldn't match the design. The proposed windows are out of character and are not small in relation to the elevation of the building, as required by Policy 3. My point 4 is trying to pick up on, I mean, I'm really not quite sure of the way in which this works. I think that you can build anything and then you need a change of use if you want to make it for commercial use. But I would just observe really here that there is no internal access to the gym and studio from the existing property. And an additional WC is being provided, despite the fact that there's one on the ground floor of the existing building. So it rather appears as this is intended pretty much as a standalone building. It's far larger than you'd need for a domestic gym, speaking as someone who's got a few pieces of equipment, and begs the question as to whether this is therefore intended for commercial purposes. And I would say that not only would it require a change of use, permission, but the parish council, I would suggest, would object to that. It's a residential estate, and we have got a provision within the parish for commercial premises at both Lodge Farm Business Centre and Lincoln Lodge Business Centre. And therefore, I would recommend that we object to this application and request that, should the case officer not also object, that we decide at development control at which the parish council would speak. And for members of the public, this is just a formal statement that prevents, otherwise we can just put in objections and the case officer can go, okay, all right then, and just pass it anyway. The parish councils have got a right to require that cases are determined at development control panel or development control committee, depending on which one it is, rather than being decided by a case officer. So if I can put that forward as our proposed policy. I should have asked you, Steve, did Ian get a copy of this?
Yes.
He did, good, good. In that case, as Ian isn't visible to raise his hand, can I ask Ian whether you wanted to make any comments on this application before I go around to the other councillors on video?
No, I've got two hands up in the air. Did
Right.
you get that?
Okay.
No.
We haven't voted yet, Ian.
Right.
Right. Welcome, Kay. I'm sorry you had problems joining the meeting, and I'm not sure how much of that you caught, but we're on 5.3, the planning application at 12 Shepperton, and I have proposed, after Steve Patrick spoke from the public, I suspended the meeting and then we've now resumed, and I put up a proposed response from the parish council. I don't know if you have any questions before I move to the other councillors. No. Other councillors, do you wish to say anything? John?
Yeah, I completely support the letter that we intend to send in. I think there is a really crucial point in objections 4 of the second part, where we speak of commercial opportunities in Lodge Farm and in Lincoln Lodge Court. And there are many people in the village that have moved premises into those areas, and that seems to be the right way to go about things. So I'm completely supportive of the objection we're sending in.
Yeah. Oh, just before I come to Russell, could I just make a general point? Oh, thank you, Kay, for the message. Yeah, you probably just need to select the correct microphone. Sometimes happens. I know Russell's had that sort of problem. If I could just make a general point to residents, which is that although the parish council will come to a decision as to whether it's going to object to this, we are not the determining body. You do need to send any objections that you have through to Milton Keynes Council, preferably on their planning access system, though they will take applications, objections or support by email, or I believe also by phone. I'm not quite sure what their phone answering ability is at the moment during COVID, but normally you can actually ring up and make some comments over the phone as well for those people who aren't comfortable writing. Russell.
Can I just add to that, Chair, that if anybody wants the link to the Milton Keynes Council public access system, if they email me, the clerk, I will let them have the link into Milton Keynes Council site.
Or even better, if they go on to the planning page of the parish council website, Castlethorpe,
all right, we've a link in there.
pc.gov.uk, and click on the link to planning. There is a direct link that will take you directly there.
Okay.
Thank you, Russell. Russell, did you want to speak on this?
Yeah, I'm surprised, actually, bearing in mind what we said last time, that exactly the same proposal was put forward and our strong objections, why they've come back with exactly the same design and there's nothing, as far as I can see, changed from it.
I don't think the gym was there last time.
No, that's no, but the third floor and the monstrous roof and building and that was exactly the same as it was before.
Well, there we are. Did anyone else want to speak on it? I think Darren's the only one who hasn't, but
sorry,
right.
Chair, could I just clarify, does anybody suggesting that we add anything to Phil's draft?
Yeah. No.
Or are you happy? You've made the comments, but are you happy for it to go as is, or would you like?
Yeah,
to
that's. I'm just about
adding
to
some-
ask. I'm about to ask now. Yeah, Kay's just said she's happy as is. So I need to ask for a formal vote on this. All supportive of this being our response, and that is unanimous. Well, you've got two hands up, haven't you?
Yeah, I have. Totally atrocious.
More than unanimous.
I think we're only allowed to count one of them, but there you are. Right. Okay.
You
Well,
can't
thank you very
see what I'm
much.
doing.
And that will be our response. So I hope you saw what we're proposing to write there, Steve. And thank you very much for the work that you've done on this.
Yes, thank you.
All right. Now move on to 5.4 to 5.6. These are all a discharge of conditions associated with work at 11 School Lane. I mean, having looked at some of it, is mostly choice of the brick and the style of the rear porch. We don't normally look at discharge of conditions. The conditions are set by MKC, and MKC then have to agree whether those conditions have been discharged. But does anyone have any comments on any of them? Otherwise, we'll move on to 5.7. No, in that case, just no objection then, Steve. Move on to 5.7. This is the proposed siting of 40 static vans in lieu of 70 touring caravans in Cosgrove Park. And again, for members of the public who may be watching, Cosgrove Park, the entrance falls within South North Hants, but a large part of the site is actually within Milton Keynes. So they do need to have planning permission from Milton Keynes, as well as, quite often, from South North Hants. Now, we have discussed this before. In many ways, our view has been that we don't particularly object to the replacement of static vans by touring caravans. Sorry, the other way around. The replacement of touring caravans by static vans. It gives a more stable clientele there, and that seems to be for everybody's good. What we have objected to is delivery through Fox Covert Lane and then across private farming land to Cosgrove. We have objected in the past. The response from MKC has always been that it is public highway and they can't stop normal access down there. However, as we know, with planning applications, they do have to make a separate construction traffic plan, and we could request that the construction traffic plan did not deliver through Castlethorpe. Now, I don't know if any of you have had a chance to look at the application, but virtually the entire village of Cosgrove has written in to say that they don't want it delivered through Cosgrove, and can an alternative route be used instead. The only alternative route, of course, is through Castlethorpe. So much amusement and neighbourliness between the two villages here. If I could just point out, and then I'll come to you, Russell, I know I see you, that there are two reasons that we've objected to them coming down Fox Covert Lane. Part is just the fact that it impinges on the residents along there. But worse, these are very large vehicles that are needed to deliver it. And the residents in Fox Covert Lane are very, I don't know, they've maintained the verges very nicely. You'll see some planted out with flowers, and it looks really nice along there, particularly the verge opposite the houses.
Yeah.
And of course, as soon as they get a vehicle parked on the road, and we know that Gloria and Gloriette, or whatever her name is, the first responder vehicle is often on the road, which it needs to be in order to respond quickly. but also some of the residents a little bit further up. As soon as that happens, then the delivery vehicle pulls up onto the verge and basically flattens the flowers and puts 2 huge tire marks. And I've spent quite a lot of time working with highways and getting them then to go and agree a restitution plan with Cosgrove Park, which to their credit they have done. They've come out, they've put down topsoil, they've seeded it and brought it back the way it ought to be. They did give a commitment that they would make sure that all future deliveries were supervised. In other words, someone from Cosgrove Park would come up to Fox Covert Lane and see the vehicles through, if only out of self-interest, so they don't then have to go to the expense of repairing the verges that they damage. Certainly my suggestion here, I haven't written it as I did with the others, but my suggestion here would be that we say that, you know, we have a preference that deliveries do not come down, come through Castlethorpe through Fox Covert Lane. But if the case officer decides that this is necessary, then all deliveries are supervised but by Cosgrove Park to ensure no damage to the verge. And we refer to the fact that this has happened previously, and restitution plans have had to be agreed with Cosgrove Park. At that point, I'll now open it up to Russell. I think I saw you first.
Yeah, they have also had to submit this to South North Hants Council, and they did a traffic management report, which said that everything would be delivered through Cosgrove, which is why the people in Cosgrove are objecting. So they obviously think that is the only viable route for something of this magnitude. I think if we have if we're going to say to Milton Keynes that if all else fails, we'll let it happen, I don't think that's a very strong point, Phil, to be honest.
Well,
I think we should point out to Milton Keynes that the application to South North Hants it has all the traffic routed through Cosgrove, and that's what their traffic report says. So I don't think we should give in on this one at all.
Did anyone else want to speak on this?
Can you hear me now?
Could you hold on a moment, Kay? I think Ian wanted to speak. Ian?
Yes, my point is the reason why they don't want them through Cosgrove, with the size of the things, if you've seen them delivered, I've followed them from Havisham. They are got motors from Cosgrove Lodge in front and behind doing traffic, etc. They put up in Havisham lay-by if necessary, but the main reason is they want to come through Castlethorpe or go down by Fox Covert is the fact is they can't get round the bends, over the bridge and round the bends in Cosgrove. My answer's always been another one, and British Rail seemed to be quandary. Well, I know when our family were there, it was only a 7 to 10 ton limit. These are 40 ton lorries.
I think that's a per axle limit, Ian.
Yeah.
Pardon?
Yeah.
I think the limit is per axle.
Okay. Thank you, Ian. Kay, I think, was next.
That I was going to say the same as Ian, to be honest. I thought there was a weight limit on the bridge.
Okay.
All right, we can put that in. Russell?
But the application to South North Hants Council specifically says that the routing will be through Cosgrove.
Yeah. I mean, if I can say, I mean, I can't verify what I'm about to say because it was just given to me, you know, informally. But I've been told that commercial arrangements to use the fields at the end of Fox Covert Lane have fallen through, and therefore they have to go through Cosgrove. And in fact, these are side-by-side static homes, so they'll take them through in 2 halves. And in that way, they can get through Cosgrove.
They always come in 2 halves.
Well, whatever, Ian. I mean, that's just what I was told.
They come in 2 halves.
Yeah, that it's a commercial thing that's fallen through. I mean, I do take your point, Russell. I don't really want to give way on this. What I am worried about is if the case officer says, oh, we've had all these letters from Cosgrove, objecting to it, I guess we have to allow them to come through Castlethorpe, and we haven't therefore got in something which says, hang on a minute, you know, if you do decide this, we've got to have it supervised to avoid, you know, damage.
Can't we get people in Castlethorpe to complain and write letters?
Well, we could, but I mean, there's no, I don't know whether residents of Fox Covert Lane are watching this at the moment, but it's difficult organising these campaigns, especially during COVID. Can I take John and then George, please? John?
Yeah, Chair, I think on this one, it's very clear, really. It is in South Northants. It is to the benefit of Cosgrove generally, and it is in Cosgrove. And if South Northants has said it should be routed through Cosgrove, I think we hold the line at that. We are always option 2 to come back to the parish council and ask our view, but at the moment, this is a South Northants issue, in my opinion.
Okay.
Just to correct you, John, the planning application that hasn't been heard by South Northants yet, but the application says that the traffic routing is through Cosgrove.
Okay.
George, could I ask you to?
Yeah, thank you, Chair. The planning application that goes to South Northants is not necessarily a relevant consideration, a material consideration for the planning application that goes to Milton Keynes Council. The problem that one has is that it is a public highway and therefore people do have the right to drive up and down it. So I think trying to stop it without a material planning consideration would be quite difficult. So I would very much recommend going down Bill's route of trying to make sure that you get a management plan that includes having supervision, because certainly if I was sitting on the DCC myself, as I sometimes do as a substitute, I would find it quite hard to reject a plan for someone wanting to drive vehicles down a public road.
Thank you, George.
Yes,
Russell, do you want to come back on that at all?
Yeah, I think that the Milton Keynes planning ought to be made aware, or if they don't already know, that the route put forward in the planning application to South Northants is not through Castlethorpe, but through Cosgrove. And I think that they should be aware of that, and they should take that into consideration.
Okay.
As the preferred route is not through Milton Keynes, but through South Northants.
Right. Shall we, can we try and do it something? Sorry, Ian, did you want to speak?
Yes, please. There's two things here. They're going down there, and John Holes will not let them go for nothing. Surely he's getting something. And if you remember, when this company took over Cosgrove Lodge, they were working with Milton Keynes to put a road in the back of the farm, at the back of the estate in Milton Keynes, where the road, Wolverton Road sort of thing, coming across the field, across the river there, and going in there. And then the next one they went for was to go round the back of Cosgrove, behind the church, etc., and going across the old canal, which was there. They've got, obviously they're putting this sort of money in, they must have some money to do something towards getting a better access.
Yeah, I mean, we have had a site visit to Cosgrove Park, and they have actually explained their sort of long-term plan, which is actually to come off the road out to us just before you get into Havisham, just before the buildings line starts, settlement boundary. And you go around the edge of that field, which is actually above the flood level, under the railway arch, and you can get into Cosgrove Park relatively easily that way. But that's really not the subject of this planning application. What I would like to just suggest, to try and draw this a little bit together, is that Steve writes that we note the construction traffic management plan, which requires, which has been submitted to South Northants, which requires deliveries to be through Cosgrove, and we are supportive of it. We would note that in the past, when deliveries have been made using Fox Covert Lane, that significant verge damage has been created, and that MKC, the Highways Authority, has had to agree a restitution plan with Cosgrove Park, who have also committed to provide supervised access. But this will hopefully not be necessary given the plan to deliver through Cosgrove. Just give Steve a moment to get that down.
The last bit was support the traffic plan.
Construction traffic management plan, yeah.
Construction traffic management plan.
If you want to pass that back to me, Steve, tomorrow.
It's all right. I've got the video.
Oh,
Yeah,
right,
but I'll send it to you. I'll
the
send
advantage
it to you.
of Facebook and YouTube.
And I've got Otter as well.
Right. Okay. In that case, can I ask if everyone's in favour of that form of words?
Not a problem.
Right. Okay, that's unanimous. Thank you. Right. Let's now move on to receiving report backs on previous planning applications. As you know, I tend not to go through these individually. We're still waiting on Maltings 2. But does anyone want to raise anything on anything in section 6?
6.1, please.
6.1.
Yes. 6.1. Yes, I was unable to do the previous meeting because I was working. It fascinates me, and you can go to Charles Sawbridge, and it's been talked about for many a year, is when Richard Sawbridge was there, he wanted to put a road in for the cattle lorries, and he was asked to go towards Havisham. Now, you as a parish councillor would have abstained to it. He's putting it on the top of the hill, and the number of people who have asked me about it is going on the top of the hill. We're going to cut the right corner right off to get the vision display. The question is, other people have said to me, yes, so what happens now when they put in an application for a roadway to the house so they can sell the house off separate? They'll need a separate entrance for it. So you put an entrance down towards the village, which people consider is bad, on the top of the hill on the corner, and then an application comes in for a road up for the house. Are we going to reject to that or not?
Well, I can only say I'm going to ask. Yeah, I'll ask Steve to speak in just a moment, but I would only say for the moment, Steve, that you know, we did have the applicant's agent attended the meeting, and as I did this evening, I suspended it so that she could speak, and she explained the reason for the entrance being where it is, and I have to say, you know, we could find no reason, given the data that she supplied and the drawings that she'd supplied, and what she said in the meeting, that we could really disagree. Can I just pass to Steve for a moment, because I think he's got an update for us anyway.
Yeah, there are a couple of things. At the last meeting, the parish council resolved that they would leave the matter of access to the site to the applicant and Milton Keynes Council Highways, and they had been in lengthy discussions about it, and so the parish council determined that you know, if it was all right with Milton Keynes Council Highways, then that we can't really say any more than that. An update is, and I have to hold my hand up here, that through some confusion, the last meeting also determined that that Phil and myself would talk to Milton Keynes Council Planning, the case officer, about traffic through the village, and I didn't do that. And today I got a letter from Milton Keynes Council saying that the application had been approved, which I will circulate to you after the meeting. So the application has been approved with conditions around access. And
well, I'll come back another thing on that. On the last meeting, obviously, it was declared that they were only going to convert the back building into units. So what happens in 12, 18 months' time when they've done that? They come to us to change the farm buildings. So I'm not saying they won't do it at the moment, but when they come to us and say they want to change farm buildings into units, what happens then?
Well, it's a separate application and it will have to be considered on its own merits, Ian. Okay, all right, let's, I think we have to move on. I mean, there's no more we can really say on this. It's a decision notice that's been published. If I can move now to 7.1, we have got some confidential business to do with a legal matter that we have to discuss. I think actually, do we publish the agenda item to the public, Steve, or not?
I'm sorry, Phil, do we publish what?
The part 2 agenda item, do we?
Oh yeah, we
publish
what it's about, but we obviously conduct it in closed session.
Yeah, so basically for members of the public who may not have the agenda in front of them, this was a claim by the parish council for damages done to the village hall, where and I have to give particular credit to Russell for seeing this through, and he was successful in the court in getting the damages, and there is an application for stage payment which we'll consider in part 2 as being a legal matter. So can I formally ask, move that we agree and consider a public excluded part 2 of the meeting? Yeah, all those in favour?
No problem.
Yeah, very good. Right, moving on to 7.2. I mean, 7.2 is about this sustainable construction supplementary planning document. I mean, it's rather a specialist topic. I did sort of read it a little bit, and it's about trying to make Milton Keynes a green city, basically. I made a couple of comments which I think I did circulate to you, which is, but they're rather trivial, really. I'd be interested to know if George has got any comments on it in a moment. But I'm surprised that they recommend biomass burners as moving away from gas, because I thought biomass was pretty much being discredited these days as causing almost as much carbon problem as fossil fuels. And I'm surprised that they don't mention things like ground source heat pumps, which are all being mentioned as the way that we're going to have to go by 2030. And also that it doesn't take account of the recently announced government commitment to CO2 reduction by 2030. But I mean, I really don't know any more than that. And I don't know if anyone else has read it or wants to put any comments forward. I will ask you, George, I don't know if you followed this and whether you have any comments as a ward councillor on it, but...
I'm regret to have to say, Chair, I haven't read it yet. It's sitting on my list of things to do. I am going also to a briefing from Milton Keynes Council in a few days' time on it. I will know more later, but I'm afraid I haven't done more than look at it and go, that looks rather a lot of reading at the moment.
Yeah. Does any other councillor wish to make any comments on this?
No.
Shall we just note it then and leave it at that? 7.3 is to consider a response on to the consultation on the waste collection consultation. Now, if you all remember, this is a proposal that from April 22 that we will change the method of collecting waste to basically to bins, rather like the green bins that we've got now, but of course they won't all be green. The green bins will continue as they are now. There'll be a bin for what is currently in the non-recyclable waste, the black bags. But the recyclables will be split into 2 bins, one of which is for paper and cardboard, and the other of which is for other recyclables, such as glass, metal and plastic. I think that's right, isn't it? Is the glass? Yeah.
Yeah, all different things.
Now, I did attend a presentation that was given to the parishes on this, and I think really the only big concern, I will show you, I did ask a colleague of ours, the chairman of Rfo Parish Council, whom I know I've worked with him on a number of things, and they're actually one of the pilot parishes for this, along with places like New Bradwell and so on. And I did ask him for his comments, and I will just show you those comments in a moment. But I think that the big concern that I have got, and I did raise this in the presentation that they gave, is the storage of these bins, especially in Edwardian houses. Now, they say that they will provide smaller bins for houses that don't have rear to front access. And they also say that they have got powers for stopping people leaving them on the street. But after the presentation had finished, I realized that there was some ambiguity when I asked the question about bins being left permanently at the front. That I think they were answering about being left on the street where they have got powers to stop that. And the more likely concern that I've got that they're actually just left in the front yard of our rather lovely Edwardian houses, which would just completely spoil them. I also made one very small comment that if you're putting glass in some of these tool bins, there's not going to be a lot of broken glass at the bottom, but you know, not my problem in that sense. I will just show you the comment that let me just bring this up and share it. So I don't know if you can all see this now. These are comments that Councillor Steve Waters has made. So he's making a series of points here. The ... dots are because there are just some personal exchanges at the front. So he's saying they do take up a lot of space. Small boxes do help. You know, I think point 3, that's all fair enough. 4 is the one that I'm worried about. We can see some users will have the wheelie bins in their frontages in the gardens. They're not the most attractive of things, and they take up a lot of space, and you wouldn't be supportive. And I think that should be, I personally would like to see that as part of our comments. I'm really worried about that. You know, we've gone to a lot of trouble to try to get the village looking nice, and if all that lot had been kept out at the front, and some people will do it because it's just going to be easier. And it says the battery containers, a bit silly. And I think that's really the only point that he's making as well. But I just thought I'd show you all of that. Can I now open this up for a wider discussion? Russell.
I don't know whether anybody has seen New Bradwell. I went to Sid Telfer's a few times, and the houses there, it's a terrace of houses, and they have the bins out in the front, and the 4 bins together do take an awful lot of space. And there's no way of doing it because they have to be side by side. It is more efficient to do it that way. It's much easier and quicker and cheaper also for the council as well. So you can see why they're doing it. But I think basically it's probably a good idea, but it does take a lot of space, and if you haven't got anywhere else to put it, it's going to have to be in the front of the house.
Or use small boxes that they bring out, and that's the key thing. Darren.
Is the what's the feedback on collection? Is it every bin every week?
No.
The recycling is done every 2 weeks.
Yeah.
So it
But
alternates. They'll do one week and one the other.
Okay. But
And
the the black bins would be taken every week, is it?
I think black bins are taken every week. And I would say and you may have read this, but it's been a long-standing problem. Some parts of Milton Keynes have got some really serious problems with rats. Actually having this kind of container should reduce that quite substantially, which would be an absolutely horrible thing to have.
To be fair, this is the way that most councils in England anyway do deal with their rubbish.
Yeah. George, would you like to?
Yeah, thank you, Chair. One of the concerns I think that the council have is that apparently the sort of lorries that they are using to do our collections are either not available or no longer going to be available. So they want to move to bins because it's going to be a lot cheaper to have bin lorries, because those are the lorries that are available. My concern, I think people will put them outside the front of their house because they are boring and difficult to trundle around, especially if you're elderly or disabled or infirm or whatever. My real worry about this is that as I drive through villages, Olney, Weston Underwood, Stoke, places like that, Castlethorpe, on the days when I often see bigger piles of rubbish than would fit into these bins. And my concern is that when they give you bins, they will then start bringing in rules, as I've seen in other places, that you cannot put things that are not in the bins. And if we have the council not picking up all the rubbish because it doesn't fit into a bin and you're going to get fined if you have more or anything like that, it's going to increase fly tipping. I think in the long term, it's going to be a retrograde step. I'm very much in favour of keeping the system we've got at the moment, where they take all of the rubbish without question, because if we start limiting it, we'll end up with rubbish all over the place, and it'll often end up in our areas, in the rural areas.
Yeah, that is. In fact, I'm pretty certain that in the presentation to the parishes, they said that they would not collect rubbish that's left by the side of bins. So, playing to your point there, George. Yeah. The other thought that does occur to me is that we have, particularly in New Road Prospect Place, we need a special collection vehicle because the road is so narrow. The large collection vehicles won't fit down there. And after a series of problems with collections, Kevin Wilson, the man who runs the waste services, agreed to allocate a special collection vehicle, which is a much smaller one, to collect from there. And I'm not quite sure how that fits in. And Steve, if you could make a note of that as part of our response as well. So we've got a problem about storage at the front of the bins at the front of properties. And we really want Milton Keynes to take some powers to make sure that that doesn't happen. We want to ensure that additional rubbish is collected, as George has pointed out. And I think we want to make sure that provision is made for collections where currently small collection vehicles are used. Are there any other points that any other councillor would like to make on this? George.
So if I could just add, if we could encourage as many people as possible, I don't know how many parishioners are watching, but encourage as many people as possible to reply individually to the consultation from the council. They want as many replies as they can get. Okay, thank you. Darren.
Just wondering, was there mention of if the lid wasn't closed properly, they wouldn't take the bin then? Sometimes you hear the stories of overflowing, albeit it's not on the side, but if it's not in the top properly, they won't touch the bin either. So
yeah. Well, I can tell you actually, in Northants, they've got a stricter method, or certainly South Northants, where my daughter lives. And there have been occasions when she's brought some extra rubbish over and said, Dad, can I possibly put this in your bin because we've overflown? Oh, yeah. Anyway, there we go. I probably shouldn't say that publicly, should I? There you go. Yeah. Okay. Well, those points then. Can we all agree that those are the points that we'll make in our response?
No problem.
Okay. Very good. The next one is 7.4. Consider the response on the consultation of the conservation area review. And I would. Oh, a minute. I've got the. Yeah. And there is also in 9.2 some comments that Steve received from a resident about not being contacted on this. Now, what I would say is that looking at the amended conservation plan, if you remember what happened here, there was a review of the conservation area that Russell, John and I did with Martin Ellison, the conservation officer. I'm not sure if anybody else was there, but we walked the village. We made some recommendations. It was about 2 years later before he actually wrote it up. In that, he'd made a few changes around, I think, I can't remember. Certainly, I know that in South Street, there were some changes that we didn't agree with. We made some suggestions back, and as a result, he published for public consultation a revised plan. That revised plan has got all the corrections we asked for, except in Lodge Farm Court. In Lodge Farm Court, the old conservation area boundary ran across the main access road. So all the houses on the right-hand side as you go in were in the conservation area, and all the houses on the left-hand side were not in the conservation area. In this amended plan, he has excluded numbers 6 to 12. Now, what I will do is I will show you, I can do this, a letter that has been sent to Milton Keynes by the householder of number 6. Number 6, if you can see from the arrow showing here, is it actually in that courtyard that is immediately on your right as you go in. And Martin Ellison had proposed that that was not part of the conservation area. And I very strongly feel that it should be. And the reason is that in that courtyard, and I don't know if you can see my cursor here, but this house, every other house in here is grade 2 listed. Yeah. And this house isn't. And if it's not in the conservation area, they will have certain development rights that could spoil that courtyard, which is, as I say, completely of grade 2 listed buildings. If I scroll down slightly, you can see this is the number 6, and these are all or some of the other houses in there. So I personally feel very strongly that number 6 and that courtyard should be part of the conservation area, and I would ask for the council's support on that. If I just scroll back up and show you, this is the row of houses, numbers 7 to 11, and then just off to the right here is number 12, which is a detached property. Now, these are all new builds, and one of the residents in there did contact us. She wrote to Steve basically saying that she was very disappointed she hadn't been contacted as an affected property, etc., etc. And I did I did write to her. Steve forwarded it to me, and I wrote to her and then spoke to her on the phone. And I did explain that this had actually been raised in two of our meetings, that it was going to be raised again tonight, that it was in the Castlethorpe news that we distributed, and actually Milton Keynes Council had posted notices of it on lampposts. So, you know, I did feel that we had done our bit in trying to keep people affected. However, moving to the substantive point, she felt that this row of houses here, and indeed number 12, which are all new builds, should not be in the conservation area. So the boundary, instead of running across the road, would effectively run along the back of their gardens, as indeed it runs along the backs of the gardens in North Street and Bullington End Road. This is not unusual. And I personally would be quite happy, you know, if that were to be the case. So I'll stop the screen sharing now and open this for comments by councillors. Councillor Katz, did you have anything to say? Councillor Fortune. Right. Does anyone wish to comment on this? Because my proposal is we respond saying we feel very strongly that number 6 should be included in the conservation area. And by the way, I've also had a telephone conversation with Martin Ellison on this, and he says, oh, it's got no architectural merit, you know, it's a new build. I think he's been very harsh. I think it's a very nice new stone built house. But it's the integrity of the courtyard that I'm really worried about. So I would say respond very strongly that that number 6 is included, but say that we do not feel strongly about numbers 7 to 12. Russell.
Just one point, Phil. Surely the back of the houses that are proposed to be outside the conservation area, surely they're part of that courtyard as well.
Well, they are. Yeah, that is.
So there's nothing to stop future owners of those houses, you know, under permitted development rights, doing whatever they want, which would equally spoil the view of the courtyard.
Well, they could. I mean, there is very limited.
I'm not saying they would, but you know, just worst case scenario.
There is very limited room to do very much, to be honest. I don't know if you've looked at that. I mean, it's literally just a couple of steps out of the back. I think they've got enough room for
the waste bins.
Sorry, Ian.
The waste bins.
Yes.
Yeah, they're very thin. But they would be entitled to put up a under permitted development rights a rear extension, you know, to their boundary. I'm not sure if it's actually to the boundary or just to within a metre of the boundary, but basically they could put something up there. But there you go. Ian, did you want to speak?
Yeah, you're talking when you go into there, when you turn into the court, you know, what you call the court there, and you're talking that certain house. The other ones are the other stone ones that run down on the right-hand side.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, they were all pigsties, etc., etc. There are old ancient buildings. They are. They're not all new. They're not new buildings. That's how we're converted out the stables that were there and the pigsties.
Yeah, but they're all grade 2 listed. The number 6 is the new build that isn't grade 2 listed, and that's the only one actually in the courtyard.
No, I think Ian's talking about numbers 7 to 11.
Right.
And they may have been, but I mean, they have been completely rebuilt. I don't think there's anything of architectural value left on them.
Well,
Ian.
true in a fashion that way, yes, but
equally,
at the end of the day, at the end of the day, somebody could come along like the Shepperton Close one tonight and try and put a dormer in the roof or something, which would spoil it.
Yeah, they could. You know, yeah, you can get these things.
That would spoil the style of completely in that court, won't it?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it's all these things are true.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just trying to get the balance between
right and wrong.
between protecting the village and not. I mean, it's not particularly onerous in any case, being in a conservation area, but you don't have permitted development rights, which means that you simply doesn't. I'm just trying to see whether this would help actually.
I think it means you can't do it off the cuff. You have to go and get planning permission for anything.
That's right. You need planning permission rather than doing it under permitted development. Sorry, I was distracted. I was trying to pull up a Google satellite view of the houses, but I don't think it's any more than in that letter that we had really. So I John.
I think, Chair, that Ian's had a fair point. These were old barn buildings and are grade listed, but I do think that the house in question, although a new house, is entirely in keeping with the courtyard as it is. It's quite sympathetically built, so I would support the view that that should be within the area.
That's number 6, yeah.
Yeah.
What about number 7 to 12, John?
I think it's all been said about that, really, hasn't it? They are very small. There's small back gardens there. Don't have a strong view on that one, Chair.
Anyone else?
So I think the looking at it from an external eye to a certain extent, the arguments that number 6 should be included for the preservation of the yard as an area I feel apply to the 7 to 12 as well. I think it's quite difficult to say we're worried about the preservation of 3 sides of this courtyard but not the 4th. I can see there being reasons why people would question that. I mean, I think you're right that a conservation area is supposed to be a conservation area rather than a conservation selection of buildings. And so you should be looking at the whole area and saying this is an area that we want to preserve, and even the new build should be in it. But I think Russell was right to point out that there could be a sort of question raised as to, well, if you're not worried about that side, why are you worried about that side?
Yeah, that is a valid point.
Yeah.
And incidentally, if I can just mention, in other parts of the conservation area, he proposed to exclude, if I can name names, which I hope won't be, but the Sue and Charles Sawbridge's house and John Earp's house. And I said, well, I think South Street is the conservation area that you want to preserve the outage on it. I happen to think that Charles and Sue's is a nice new built stone house. John Earp's is, a bungalow, which is out of it. But then there are a number of bungalows on the other side of the road, which are included in the conservation area anyway. So I think George's point is absolutely right. It is about the area, not necessarily about individual houses within it. I mean, I'm getting a sense that that the view is that we should actually ask for at least 7 to 11 to be within the conservation area.
Yes, I think so, because I know they are new houses, but it does actually, it's not out of character with the rear of them, with the front of all the other houses in the courtyard.
Yeah.
That's a fair point, Chair. I mean, the nice stone walls all the way along. Can I just ask some point of clarification? The further you go into those cottages, there's I think the N2 are not backing onto the courtyard, are they?
The N1 isn't, no.
The N1 isn't backing onto the courtyard. So what was your proposal again? To just include the ones that backed onto the courtyard?
Oh, blimey. I'm not quite sure which ones they are. I mean, I can.
I think it's got to be the whole terrace of whole of that terrace.
Yeah. I mean,
but the next one down, like John's just said, is detached, I think, isn't it?
Yeah. Well, I don't think number 12 necessarily has to be. That's almost got nothing to do with it. Certainly isn't on the on the courtyard. I'm just sharing at the moment, as you can probably see now, the Google Street View. I'm sure you're getting this, Ian. The Google Street View of the back of these houses, and this is going around. That's number 6. It's just coming into shot now, and you can see the row. I mean, I think really the row effectively goes the whole way along.
Okay.
If we're going to require that to go in, I'll just see if I can swing round. I mean, this is the rest of the courtyard. I'm just going round here.
Yeah.
See, these are all listed dwellings. Oops, apologies.
So I can certainly see the argument for including those.
Yeah. Well, in that case, I'm happy to take the. You know, I was just responding, you know, to the resident there, but you know, I'm happy to take the sense of the meeting. So what we're going to agree then is that we feel that number 6 and number 7 to 11 should definitely be included in the conservation area.
I think even though number 12 is not visible from that area, it seems illogical to exclude one house from the whole of that row of houses.
Well, it is a separate house, and
it's not attached to those houses.
No.
Oh, right. No.
No,
okay.
no. It's.
I thought it was the end of the terrace.
Yeah. Hang on. I'll just see if I can. Right. Let me just go. I can just go along the road a little bit, then I'll share this with you. It's marvelous, this thing, isn't it? Right. Right. So this is the view of that row of houses from the main road on Lodge Farm Court. And if I now swing round, this is number 12. It's just coming into shot now. You can see it's a completely separate dwelling.
Yeah.
And indeed, it's really no different. Well, it is stone built, of course, but it's really no different to the houses opposite in terms of the way it stands, except that that's sort of stand. And you can see there that the end of number 11 runs down, and that will be the back of number 6 that you can just see through there.
That's right.
Yeah. So I think that's.
Yeah. Okay. I agree.
So that's what we're agreeing on the conservation area. Then we agree with everything, but we want number 6 plus numbers 7 to 11 included in the conservation area, but we're not concerned about number 12. Yeah, all in favour on that? Yeah.
Yeah.
Great stuff. Okay. 7.5 is to purchase some Christmas craft bags. This is, I think I need to ask Steve to lead on this. There is a document that's been published, and I'm happy to share this.
Yeah, I'll take it if you like, Chair.
Yeah.
Okay, Milton Keynes Play Association are doing what looks like pretty good value for money, if you like, gift packs, running up to Christmas. Now, I've circulated what's in them, and there's a hell of a lot in them. And I was suggesting to the parish councillors that they might like to buy a gift pack for every pupil at the first school and all of the kids at Acorn Nursery. The bags are £5 each. Like I say, they're very well stocked. There are 43 children at the school, and there are 20 people at the nursery. I've written to both the nursery and the school, and they both think it's a good idea, and I'm sure would be very, very welcoming of the Christmas gifts. So I put it to the parish council that I worked out to be £315 of S137 money to purchase these bags. That's it.
Yes, Chair.
Yes.
Yes, A, are we setting a precedent here for every year? And B, We haven't got to do the old people's this year because they won't be having their party. Yes, some of it this year,
Indeed.
but we'll be setting the precedent, and they'll expect it every year.
I think we'd have to make it clear that this is a one-off because 2020 has been such a dreadful year.
Yeah, not a problem with that. But just saying, people might think, "Oh, bloody Parish Council ain't done it this year," sort of thing. When it comes to next year.
Russell,
I think this is the spirit of Christmas present and not Christmas future, Ian.
Do you know what some people are?
Yeah, let's just move straight to a vote on this one. All in favour? Yeah,
yes, as long as it's pointed out. Yeah, as long as it's not pointed out, it's not every year.
Yeah, that's fine. Now, 7.6 is to consider replacement trees at the fish ponds. Steve and I, and John actually invited himself, like Lulu, attended a meeting with 2 tree inspectors from Milton Keynes Council. Basically, we were looking at replacing the tree that blew down, or recently blew down. And in fact, one of the tree inspectors is arranging for the remaining debris from that to be removed. It's still there. What they are suggesting is that, because we wanted some information on species and so on, to replace that ash that's come down, they think that an oak, a hornbeam or walnut would work well. They're all native, and having checked the soil type on Soil Space, we are confident they should do well. So that's an important one. Now, just to go on a little bit more, we actually thought that in the spirit of 2020, we might look at the fish ponds a little bit more and decide, whether there's a very open space at the on the railway side of the fish ponds, sort of behind the tall slide, but in that corner, there's a lot of empty space. And we were walking over there, and we realised that just a couple of houses up from where John lives, that a tree had been blown out or removed some time ago there. And we thought it might be nice to get these replaced. I mean, they do definitely have a lifetime, and the one immediately behind John's house is starting, I think, to near the end of its life. I mean, by near, I mean we're talking 5-10 years, I guess, but don't think it's going to blow down in the next winter, but who knows? But to replace those as we go along, and they have said that they would actually fund that replacement of a sycamore, and are suggesting something like a small-leaved lime or silver pendant lime, or possibly something smaller. But I personally think, keeping a consistent line of trees would be better, but we could go smaller if we wanted. And the last place that we did look for, I'm just trying to see if I've got this in here, but in that last space that I described to you, which is the far corner from the gate into Gobby's Field, if you see what I mean, the exact opposite side of it. There's a very large flat space there, and we thought that and they thought that a large tree would go well. It wouldn't. It's a long way from the houses, so it's not going to impact the houses. It's a long way from the railway, so it's not going to impact the railway. It
will impact the sewer.
The sewer.
The sewer runs down across there, either by that gate, by Gobby's Field.
Surely the sewer runs near the footbridge at that end.
Under the railway, yes, by the footbridge, etc. You're not far away from that, where you're saying.
No, we are. We're in the opposite corner. We're if you come in the gate, Ian, and you go up to the two corners by the railway, it's the far one. It's the one by the houses. The road,
right, yeah, the top end. Yeah, sorry.
Yeah. So that should be well away from everything. It is, however, on scheduled ancient monument, so permission would be required.
Required to dig it, yes.
Yeah. So I have given the tree inspector, I think her name was Laura. Well, there were two of them, Laura and Leo. And I've given them the name of the lady, Alex Belisario, I think, who came along from English Heritage when we were putting in the zip wire. And indeed, we wanted to put in the beacon in Castlefield. And they have said they will contact her. They're not sure whether that tree at the back of the houses, the sycamore replacement, whether that area is inside the SAM or not. From the Historic England site, it isn't. Now, I don't know, Steve, whether you've got any prices for us on this, because they did say that they could actually get Serco to give it all, or we could look up on Bartram's, who is their preferred supplier, and it makes sure they're not going to bring any horrible diseases in. That would be their preferred supplier. Steve, did you manage to get any prices to?
I didn't pick up that action, Phil. I didn't realise that I was being asked to do that. So
okay.
No.
In that case, this is an update, and we'll have to come forward then at the next meeting for an approval. Any comments before we do this, because it might shape what we get approval for. John?
Yeah, I will just reiterate a comment I made at the day. I've no objection whatsoever to replacing an oak or whatever at the far end for the fallen oak. But I think we have to learn the lesson that the trees that were placed behind the houses along the back of Station Road there have grown to an enormous height and ensure that there's no sunlight in the gardens of the people that live there at large parts of the day. And that has been a complaint to me. And indeed, one resident asked if we could lock the trees at the back. I asked the council to deal with that, but they are over 40 years old and they felt they couldn't do it. So the plea is, if we are going to replace trees, can we consider the views of residents at the back and perhaps plant smaller specimens than the ones that are there currently?
I mean, it will take, as you said, 40 to 50 years before they grow to the similar sort of height, which I'm reasonably confident will see most of the current residents and indeed me out. But I mean, I don't have a problem, I guess, if we look as those trees do reach end of life and have to be replaced by going for something smaller, and they have suggested a mulberry. I mean, what do other councillors think? Darren?
Would we need anything from Network Rail to confirm that we could go that close to the railings if it was going to be in that top corner?
Well, this is actually MKC land, and thank goodness it is. And they are going to get the necessary permissions.
Okay.
I think they're quite a long way away, actually. It's a big piece of land. All right, so we'll take this away then. Is there a general agreement then that we go for a smaller one behind the houses? Yeah.
Yes.
Go for mulberry there, and we'll take the examples that they've given. Separately, they have said that they use Serco for planting. There's a specialist tree planting bit of Serco, and often I'll read this. Often we will ask Serco to source the trees from Bartram's. They will then provide a quote for the whole job, including supplying the tree, planting stakes, ties, mulch, and if we request it, a hydration bag, which they recommend, which sees it through the first summer. So we may need to see if there's a volunteer to do that. And I noticed that John has left the meeting exactly at that point. So I think we can probably vote him as a volunteer, as he's not here to do that.
Chair, I was plugging my computer in as it was crying for oxygen on the battery side.
Yeah. All right. We'll go.
What have I just been volunteered for, Chair?
Topping up a tree hydration bag, if they, which is what they recommend. But no.
But you're not to pay in it.
If you don't do it, we'll get the handyman to do it.
Let me sort something. Carry on.
So we'll come back with quotes at the next meeting. And my suggestion, to make it nice and easy and to make sure that this is all done properly, is that we do get MKC to get a their professional contractor to do it, because I think we don't want to pay out £180 or whatever it is for these trees, and then for the thing to die. Okay. Right, we now move on to the Rfo payment schedule. And I'll bring this up. Right, and I'll share the screen. So it's a fairly straightforward set of payments this time. Whoops, I'm sorry. Steve's salary, the audit fees, village hall cleaning, landscaping, and a subscription, plus the usual monthly deductions. Any questions on this? Oh, Russell.
Richard Wantner has been doing some work, but he's not on there, I don't think.
No, he's got nothing for this month. He'll put his invoice in next month. But I've a question about Stacey. Last month I asked her whether she got anything, and she said about £50 worth, but she didn't follow that up with an invoice. And this month I've not had an invoice either. So have you any idea whether she's been doing?
She has
by the way,
she has been doing occasional cleaning, but not obviously.
That should read VH clean in November and landscape in November. Sorry, that's a mistake. I mean, I haven't had an invoice from Stacey.
I think it's the same. The problem of the hassle of going to the bank to cash the check.
Yeah.
Really. So I think what she wants to do is store it up till it's a decent amount, and then she'd only have to go to the bank.
Okay.
Yeah. Well, look, on this particular one, I think we'll just move to a straightforward. It's so straightforward. Just move to a vote. Yeah. I'll propose. I need a seconder, please, Russell, and all in favour.
Yeah. What was Bird?
Has Darren gone?
Can't see. I've got the payment schedule on the screen.
Yeah.
No, I can see him.
Oh, you can see Darren. Okay, I've only got it. Right, I'll stop the share. Oh yeah, there's Darren. Okay, yeah, we're all okay. That's great. Now we move to the next year's budget. We did have a working meeting, and my apologies to those of you, such as Darren and Kay and
Ian,
who couldn't. Oh, excuse me. I'll download that. Sorry, it's just come up in just a moment, and then we'll have a look at. We had a working group just to go through it and to make sure that the numbers all seem to make sense. So I apologise to those of you who couldn't make it. But it was an hour and a half by the time we finished. So it was good to have that discussion then, rather than to be starting an hour and a half discussion at 9:20.
Sorry, Chair. Can I just ask Ian whether it's? I did drop the budget off to you, Ian. Have you got it?
Yes, you did. But what I've had on today, etc. I haven't had a chance to.
Yeah, I mean, it's just we're walking through now. And
yeah, well, it's all
basic
what
can't
it's
see the
about.
screen.
Yes.
Okay.
So much for this, so much for that, and so much for this, and so much for that. Yeah.
As long as you've got it.
Right.
Yeah.
Now, what I'd like to do is to come back to the precept as the last item, and I would just ask councillors, and I think I'm particularly concerned with Ian and Darren, because John and Russell were in the meeting, if they have any questions about any of the costs that or indeed other income other than the precept that are showing on this proposed budget.
As I say, I didn't get back to, well, I didn't get it till later on, and I've been busy today, so I haven't had a chance to read it that much.
There's nothing standing out from what I can see.
Right. What I'd just like to draw your attention to then is that if you look there, this shows us with a total income of just under 50,000 and a total expenditure on running costs of just over 40,000. So it leaves about 9,000 for capital projects, things that we try to improve. Like I mentioned earlier, you know, I think upgrading these street lights is going to be quite expensive. So that's the sort of capital project, but we've had a number of them in the past. Now, I'm just trying to find it. What I'd like to if you just bear with me just for a moment, I'll just see if I can find the note that I sent to Steve. Right. Now, you can look at the precept in two ways. You can look at it as the total demand, which is actually what we make to Milton Keynes Council. So basically we say we want X pounds, and they then divide it up by what are called the Band D properties. So we all know what the bands are for properties, and they tell us we've got a certain number of Band D equivalents in Castlethorpe, and they basically divide up whatever we ask for between that number of Band D properties and say that's the cost per property. The other way of looking at it is to say, as a householder, I paid this much this year, and you're going to ask me for that much next year.
Next year.
Right. Now, you can see that we have actually got a surplus this year. We have actually got some quite reasonable reserves, and we were particularly blessed this year by having two government grants come in, one directly to us for the village hall and one indirectly for the sports ground, which meant that the financial problems that many parish councils have faced didn't actually affect us here in Castlethorpe. So what has actually happened is that there has been a reduction in the number of Band D properties or the tax base of Band D properties. There were 457 last financial year. There are 440 this financial year, which means that if we kept the precept at the same level as per Band D as it was this year, which is £72.52 per house, that would give us approximately £31,940. It's very slightly different to that. And that is about £1,300 less in precept than we would have than we got this year. And I would suggest, my recommendation to the council is that we go ahead with that for two reasons. Firstly, you know, there isn't really a strong justification for an increase in precept. And secondly, because it has been an awful year. A lot of houses have had financial difficulties. I know this is, you know, but a small contribution, but I think actually the parish council not increasing the Band D rate would be a reasonable thing to do for our residents. As an aside, I would just say what this means in real terms, the reduction from 457 to 440 Band D houses. Houses don't pay the full council tax and therefore precept if they are in receipt of certain benefits. Okay, I think I can't remember the exact proportion. What this actually means is that at least 17 houses, and probably more because it's actually only a proportion reduction, have gone into benefits in the village. And I almost hadn't realised that there was that much increased hardship in the village until I got these figures from Steve when we did that. And I think, you know, it's very difficult to think what we can do about it as a parish council, because our sums of money aren't actually that big by the time you take away all the things we have to pay there, as you can see. But, you know, probably 17 to 20 houses in this village have gone into benefits, into hardship in this last year. But turning back to this, my proposal is that we maintain the Band D amount charge at £72.52 and don't increase it for the next financial year. Can I open this now up for discussion? I'll ask Ian and Darren if they'd like to speak first, as they weren't in the meeting that Russell and John have had the opportunity to talk on this.
Well, as far as I'm concerned, we can only do what we can do, can't we? And make it look right.
So you'll be supportive of that?
Oh yeah, not a problem as such, you know.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, we might get some 106 out of Paddock Close.
I do. Darren, did you want to say anything on this?
No, I just agree with what you said, Phil. So all sounds reasonable.
Okay, Russell then.
In real terms, factoring in inflation, it's actually a reduction of about 2% in real terms.
Yes, it is.
Yeah.
And normally we do try to put it up by about a couple of percent every year, just to keep our real income up. But I am suggesting that we do this. By the way, I would say, I know again it's not a huge amount of money, but BALC, the County Association of Local Councils, to whom we pay a subscription, are not only holding their contribution at the same level, they're absorbing the NALC, the National Association increase, which was agreed before COVID and is just, you know, being implemented over the years. And BALC have agreed to absorb that increase on behalf of hard-pressed parishes for next year as well. So, you know, I think this is, I personally think it's the right thing to do. John. You're
mute, John.
Yep.
Apologies, Chair. I was on mute there. I hadn't realised. I think there is a justification for increasing the precept to just take funds to where they should be. But I totally support what we're saying tonight, that we should leave it as is. And I think the point that we're leaving it as is, and in fact is a 2% reduction approximately, ought to be made in the Castlethorpe News when we get the opportunity, because I suspect we'll be one of the few councils doing this.
Thank you, John. In that case, I think everybody's spoken who wants to. So I propose that we adopt this budget for next year. Can I ask for those to?
Can I have a seconder, Phil?
Oh, a seconder, please. Russell was he waved harder than you, John.
Okay.
Are you supportive, Ian?
Yes.
Yeah.
I was waving.
Sorry?
I said I was waving.
How many hands?
One hand or two, Ian?
Two.
Right. Thank you very much, then. Right. That's our budget for next year. Now, moving on to correspondence. Secklow Sounds has asked for grants from parish councils. we don't normally give grants. Does anyone want to speak in favour of grants for Zeclo Sounds? Russell?
No.
I'm not speaking in favour of grants, but this was for a specific project, so we can certainly give them publicity for it.
Okay. Please do that. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
No, if no one wants to press for a grant, we'll move on. Then publicity is fine and free. 9.2, I've already commented on. That was
sorry, Chair, not that quickly. We still need to respond to the. So we've resolved the matter of whether we should. We've made a decision on whether to put forward for those properties to be in the area, conservation area. Now this is the matter of the parishioner's complaint that probably needs replying to.
Well, as I said when we discussed the matter, Steve, I mean, I did point out to her that we had discussed it a couple of times at Parish Council. It was coming up again this time, that we had put it in, I think, 2 copies of Castlethorpe News. It had been displayed on street lights posts. And, you know, I felt we had actually done our bit to communicate, especially as it wasn't just this strip that was affected. There was South Street and various other houses that were correction, and Bullington End Road, where we had asked for changes.
No, I'm not saying that we should respond to her about the justification of why we done it, but she has written to us with a specific complaint that probably needs a response.
Well,
Yeah,
the specific complaint was that using the Contact Us on the website didn't get any result. And I understood that Russell and you were looking at what was happening, that Russell had ascertained that it should forward the emails to you, and you were saying that you didn't actually receive them, Steve.
Russell has worked that out now, so I can write and tell her that, I suppose.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I do like to respond to people who do actually
correct.
Yeah.
write to us on a specific matter.
Yeah. I mean, yeah. All right. On the consultation, I did feel I had discussed it with her, but anyway, do you think you ought to write to her and tell her the, you know, what she won't want to hear, which is that, you know, we have actually decided that because they are part of that courtyard, that you know, unfortunately, we do feel it should be part of that.
Yeah, I do feel that I ought to write to her and tell her that.
Correct.
Okay. Thank you. Right. So the next one is an email that was forwarded to me by a Hanslope Parish councillor, which is about a resident in Hanslope who is says he is working with Sustrans and the transport planning team at MKC to construct cycle routes, dedicated cycle routes from Castlethorpe to Hanslope. Now, he's sort of more or less just dropped this on to keep Hanslope Parish Council in the loop. He's not contacted us at all, despite the fact it clearly will affect us. And I think it has caused some raised eyebrows. This is more for information. I mean, I don't know if anyone wants to say anything about it. John.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. We looked at a proposal similar to this proposal with Cycling Great Britain about 3.5–4 years ago. And a roadway past Hanslope Park was proposed. It was knocked out on the grounds of it was far too expensive. So I was quite surprised to see this proposal. I've checked this through with the council. He has also included in this the Member of Parliament as well, with this paper that he sent to Hanslope Council. It is a resident. He has and is okay to put anything he wishes in. So, for example, during what's called the local cycling and walking infrastructure plan, if Steve wanted a redway outside his house, for example, to take the dog for a walk, he can put into the pot and ask for that. and anyone can ask for anything to do with cycling or walking. And what the council will do is bring it all together. And I hope George will correct me if I'm wrong. Bring all these things together and agree which of these cycle routes have merit. I have said that I would speak to the councillors tonight, but I felt we would agree there were more pressing things to spend Section 106 monies on, including upgrading the existing redways where we are. But I will go back to, I've been dealing with a lady in the council, just one moment, Hayley Roach, who's coordinating all this. So I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, to be specific, we considered a request that was actually from a Hanslope resident some years ago. This is actually at the local area forum for a footpath from Hanslope to Hanslope Park to make it safe so they wouldn't have to walk along. And that was ruled out on the grounds of cost. I remember that. It was very, very expensive to do that. There was also some talk, apparently instigated by Hanslope Park itself, for a footpath oblique cycleway, I'm not sure which now from memory, picking up from the existing track down by the Lodge Farm Business Centre and running up to Hanslope Park again. And again, that went nowhere. This one seems to be, it talks about 3 potential routes. One basically going through, running parallel with the road, with Hanslope Road, Castlethorpe Road to Hanslope, and taking land there. One going through along upgrading the footpath that currently runs through Luke's Farm, and including, by the way, our sports ground. And if you look at the map that he included, it stopped, pretty much on the cricket square. Well, I'm not quite sure what he expect the bikes to do once they got to our cricket square.
Wheelies.
But of course, where would it go from there? It can't go. It either had to go into residential streets in Thrupp Close, or well, you just couldn't do it, could you? I mean, it's just a stupid thing. And you can't go across. Can you imagine Alex Bessario saying, "Would you mind if we put a cycleway right across the Castle Field?" I mean, that would go down, really well. And the other way, I think, was running through Ian's front room, going up Bullington End Road and on the footpath that way. So they were all pretty stupid ways. The thing is that there is a fairly clear priority that we have discussed time and time again, which is to upgrade the Sustrans track from the new surfacing roundabout Lodge Farm Business Centre through to Castlethorpe. And that is, I mean, it's a very poor condition. I haven't been on it recently, but I can imagine it's pretty claggy at this time of the year.
It's poor.
Yeah. And I really do feel that, if Milton Keynes are going to upgrade Sustrans track, they ought to start by upgrading what's currently there. At least there is a hard surface, albeit along the road, from Castlethorpe to Hanslope, which is where he wants to go. That's my personal view. And John, I would be grateful, as you seem to be, the lead on this, if you could push that as hard as you could with Milton Keynes Council and let us know how you get on.
I will, of course,
Well,
Chair.
upgrade the water tower then.
I will, of course, Chair. But this is one individual putting in a proposal, as is his right, as anyone can do. To say he's working with Sustrans, they knew all about this, but the council did. But it is just one of many, many, many projects that will form a hierarchy. They'll pick a few at the top, cost them out, and then that's what will happen. So, but I will certainly report back on the fact that we would like to see the Sustrans existing ones, particularly the ones you highlighted.
If you could feed in that, we've not been involved in this discussion, and our preference is, and always has been for many years, that the Sustrans track is improved. And that is the priority of Castlethorpe Parish Council, not this scheme that he's got.
Thank you.
Can I just point out that this isn't a formal decision? This is
No,
just something that we're reiterating what we've said before.
Yes. Indeed, yes. Thank you.
Indeed, I simply was going to say that the view were there's not a formal thing at all, Steve. Right.
No, this is noise, really. It's,
George.
Thank you, Chair. Just to say that I've been approached by this individual as well, and he informed me in his email to me that he's also had contact with Ben Everett,
Sure.
and that he's working with Sustrans. And he's also just the other day emailed councillors and various other people in Milton Keynes saying how important it is that new cycle facilities are put forward. He doesn't actually mention this particular cycle facility, but obviously that's what he's campaigning for. But just to let you know that he has been in touch with both the MP and ward councillors.
Yeah,
It seems the only people he hasn't been in touch with is us and Hanslope Parish Council.
Well, no, he's written to Hanslope now, but he's certainly not contacted us. I mean, George, if you could just make sure that priority isn't given to the loudest, to one individual who's making a lot of noise, basically, and a long-standing desire of us to have the Sustrans track improved is far more urgent, and that goes back at least. Well, actually, as long as I've been on the council, because we got the first one done before they ran out of money.
What's the route of the Sustrans track?
Well, it comes out from Havisham, where it joins the just on the other side of the bridge. In fact, you can get there from the car park in the car park that's on your right as you go out of Havisham towards Wolverton.
Yeah.
Just down by the railway arches. It goes from there.
Ouse Valley Park.
Ouse Valley. And then you turn right, you go over a bridge, and it then runs up and round to Lodge Farm Court, where we had a man called Richard Duffield who used some money to get a hard surface put on that, because that was dreadful. That was a wheel breaking surface when I first. But he then ran out of money. So from Lodge Farm Business Centre, well, it's on the other side of the railway tracks from Lodge Farm Business Centre. From there up to Castlethorpe, it's just a muddy track.
It's parallel with the railway track, George.
Yeah, it goes past the water tower and that sort of thing.
I'm just wondering why he hasn't put that as one. He's now got 5 routes on his latest proposal.
Oh, is he?
And I'm just wondering why that he hasn't chosen that as one of them.
He's not interested in that part of the route, George. That's the route between Castlethorpe and going down to the new wildlife area. He's interested in the Hanslope to Castlethorpe arm.
Okay.
But there's not much point in doing that if the connection to Havisham and into Milton Keynes isn't.
We know that.
It's only if you just want to ride from Castlethorpe to Hanslope, of course. Anyway, there we go. Right.
Just before you move on, can I just ask how we can add our own piece? Someone can send me the link. I'll happily put them in. John and I have discussed this previously, and I had contact with somebody in MK. Can't remember the lady's name off the top of my head, but she said she was going to pass it on, but I've never really heard anything back. So I'll happily raise something on our behalf to see if we can
like I said, I'm not comfortable with you raising anything formally on behalf of the parish council.
I'll do it as a resident, Steve, because when I'm allowed back in the office, I will ride that way to work.
Steve, I think we have formally discussed in the past.
We can reiterate, Phil, but we can't actually, like I say, make any
we
decisions
reiterate
based on this.
We can reiterate that our something we really want as a parish council, as a long-standing intent or desire, is that Sustrans track is improved.
Yeah, we can certainly reiterate that.
John?
I just thought this was an idea. Perhaps if Darren and I get together, and put that bit in, as we're perfectly entitled to do, into the mix of the local cycle transport plan.
Yeah. I just like this to have a little bit of legs, particularly as it's
we
being
would,
raised at the moment. And as you raised some time ago, that you know, Green Milton Keynes is putting some money into its cycle track development, and then it all went quiet. Okay, that'd be great if John and Darren would take that action. Right, any other business? Ian, have you got anything?
No.
Steve?
Yeah, the position of groundsman, Robert Princey, I had a chat with him, and he's taken on a job with Anglian Water that doesn't really allow him to be able to commit to doing the groundsman's work. So we agreed between us that it would probably be better for us to look somewhere else. Now, we put an ad in the newsletter. Also, I think it went on Facebook, Russell. But as of today, I've not had any interest come back. Now, I don't know. I have actually tried to jog a couple of people that I think would be very good for it, but they're unable to actually take it on. Ian, do you know anyone that would be interested in?
I've got a couple of ideas. Yes. We have to sort out what you think, if I can meet with you and somebody else, parish council or whatever. I mean, on the sports ground, I would be very interested.
Yeah, it's just jogging someone to apply. I mean, obviously, we're not actually giving the job there and then. We're jogging someone to apply.
No, that's right.
And then we decide whether they're suitable.
Yeah.
So is everyone happy if Ian and myself walk offline?
What I really need is then of what you expect them to do.
Yeah, I mean, quite happy to have a chat with them with you.
Yeah.
Is everyone happy that I take that forward with Ian?
Yeah, please do. Yeah, that'd be great.
Yeah.
And incidentally, Steve, I mean, the convention was that actually it was the Sports Association that hired the groundsman, and we then used the same one. So
like I say, it's just to get a candidate, Phil.
Yeah.
I wouldn't see myself as making the decision. Like you say, it should be the sports ground committee.
Yeah, indeed. Thank you. Well, Sports
Association. When it goes to the sports ground committee, has it got to be verified by the parish council then? Surely.
No,
technically it doesn't. What it is that they take on someone to do their half, and we take on someone to do our half. But what we've actually said is because their half is so much bigger than our half, we will use whoever they've got, and that was the deal. Right. So if they appoint someone, so long as it's not unreasonable, we would just appoint the same person.
Yeah, Neil will happily join in on a conversation.
Yeah,
from the Sports Association.
Okay. All right then. Any other business? In that case, the next meeting is on the 4th of January, and we'll conduct that by video conference as well. Hopefully a vaccine's on the way, and at least some of us will be inoculated in the first quarter. Sorry about that, Darren.
I'm not even on the list yet, Phil. I'm in like number 12 or 13 part, I think.
Right. So,
as I pointed out to some people, is the fact is it's been 30 years trying to find a vaccine for badgers with TB. Yeah. We haven't got that in 30 years, so we're there to get this one in 30 seconds.
Well, there you go, Ian. Marvels of science. Right, if I can just thank members of the public who've borne with us so far, but we have to stop the live feeds at this point because we're going into part 2 to discuss the legal matter that I talked about. So thank you, and hopefully you'll join us again in January, and have a good Christmas from all of us at the Parish Council.
Yeah.
Right, good evening.